Chapter 97 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Bali's Yagna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the holy grounds of Brigukacha, the Asura monarch Bali was performing the Ashwamedha under the direct guidance of Shukra and his Bhrigu clan. Vamana decided to go there and attend the Yaga. Brigukacha was on the northern banks of the sacred river Narmada. The Yaga was proceeding, and suddenly there seemed to be a great glow emanating from somewhere. When they all looked around, it seemed to be coming towards them. They all paused and spoke to themselves. It seems as though the rising sun is walking towards us. They all looked at the tiny little Brahmin child walking towards them with the kamandalu in one hand and the umbrella in the other. Is it the sun who has assumed this diminutive form to watch this yaga in person? Is it the Lord of Fire who has come to bless us? Or is it Sanat Kumara, the son of Brahma, who has designed to sanctify the Yagashala with his presence? So thought all of them when they saw his glory. Even as they were conjecturing as to who he was, Vamana walked into the Yagnashala. His tiny chest covered by the Maunji, with a sacred thread glowing like a streak of lightning across his chest, with his head covered by a charming jata, with a kamandalu in one hand and the umbrella in the other, the tiny young Brahmin stood there. The entire body stood up as one man. So great was the glory of the boy who was hardly a child. Bali rushed to his presence, fell at his feet, honored him and offered him a noble seat. He washed the tiny feet of the young Brahmin and placed the water on his head. He then said, "Welcome to you, my lord. I do not know who you are, but this I know. You have come here to bless me and to grace this Yagnashala. To me you look like the tapas of all the Brahmarishis taken collectively and given a form. By your coming I have been blessed, and so have my forefathers. My life is now made pure because of you. By placing the water of your feet on my head, I feel that I have become purified of all my sins, and my Ashwamedha Yaga has become fruitful. Tell me, my Lord, what I can do for you." Great souls like you bless their devotees by asking them for some favors. That is the privilege of a Brahmin and the good fortune of a Kshatriya, that he can grant it. A Brahmin blesses by asking, and a Kshatriya is blessed by the act, granting the favor. Tell me what I can give you. Do you want the earth or gold or houses? Shall I give you beautiful maidens, or shall I give you horses or elephants or cows? Please command me and honor me by accepting a gift from me." The small young Brahmin smiled very sweetly on Bali and said, "It is but right that you should ask these words. You should speak these words, which are so full of humility, nobility, and righteousness. It is not, however, surprising that it should be so. The great Shukra and the Bhrigus are your acharyas. And as for your ancestors, your grandfather was the great Prahalada. Your father, Virochana, who was famed for giving. I know that in your family there has never been born one who has ever refused anything to those who came with a desire. None has refused anything to those who came for alms. Nor has there been any instance of a promise once given having been withdrawn. Hiranyaksha, who was your ancestor, had but one weapon in his hand, and that was the Gada. With the help of just this Gada, he had conquered all the three worlds, and he was unhappy that he could not find one powerful enemy to fight with him. When Narayana, in the form of a Varaha, met him in a fight, when he was carrying the earth to the surface from Rashasthala, when Varaha was challenged by Hiranyaksha, Hiranyaksha fought with Varaha and was killed. But believe me, the Lord was not happy about it at all, because he often remembered the prowess of Hiranya and felt that he was not a conqueror at all. And then what happened? Hiranyakashipu, when he heard that his brother had been killed, rushed to the Vaikunta to kill Narayana. Looking at him with his trident upraised, Narayana thought to himself, "Wherever I go, this Hiranya is sure to chase me, and incidentally he will destroy all the spots where I am to dwell. His eyes, his mind, and his thoughts are all turned outwards, and so I will enter his mind." Accordingly, when he inhaled breath, Hiranya inhaled the Lord also, who had assumed the form of the tiniest of tiny particles. Hatred for the Lord is more intense than love for the Lord. And because of his hatred, because of his thinking on him night and day, Hiranyakashipu attained death at the hands of the Lord himself. As for Virochana, your father, has there been a giver as great as he? Once the Devas came to him as beggars, assuming the form of Brahmins. Even though he knew that they were Devas, your father gave them his very life since they asked for it, and it was his rule in life never to refuse alms to anyone. Born as you are, in such illustrious family, is it a wonder that you are so righteous? I will certainly ask a boon of you. I know you will grant me that. I want from you 3 paces of ground measured by my foot. Bali was amazed and he stood speechless for a moment. Then, with a tender smile lighting up his face, he said, "Indeed, you are a child. You spoke words of wisdom and they pleased the wise. Nevertheless, I am afraid you are still a child. Your behavior is also childish because you do not know what is good for you. You seem to be ignorant of what is good for you, what is advantageous. Look on me. I am the sole Lord of the entire world. You have pleased me with your charming words, and yet, instead of asking me for whole islands and heaps of gold, you ask me for 3 paces of ground measured by these tiny feet. Once I give, there will be no need for you to desire anything more at any time. Revise your words and take from me land large enough to keep you in comfort through life. Come, ask me." Vamana said, "I appreciate your words and your generous gesture. O king, believe me, if a man has not conquered desire, all the desirable things in the world will not be enough to satisfy him. A man who is not satisfied with 3 paces of ground will not find the 7 islands with all their wealth enough to satisfy him. We have been told that the lords of the 7 islands have not yet attained the state when they can say, 'I have enough.' A man who is pleased with what he gets is always happy. But the man who is swayed by the wanderings of the wayward mind will never find happiness, since he is always discontented. It is this discontent which is the cause of sorrow in man. A contented man is fit for emancipation, and his glory waxes day by day. You are the greatest of givers. You are Duni Samrat. I therefore ask you to grant me just this 3 paces of ground which will be covered by my foot." Bali laughed again. Smiling indulgently, he said, "So be it. I will grant you 3 paces of ground measured with your tiny foot." And he looked at the tiny lotus feet of the Lord in the form of a Vamana. With a smile hovering still on his lips, Bali took up the vessel full of water to pour a few drops of it on the lotus palm of the youngster and say, "I have given you what you asked for." Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamasthu. Chapter 98 of Shrimadbhagavatam. Do not give, says Shukra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shukra, the preceptor, stopped him. Without speaking a word, the king lifted his eyes and there was a questioning look on his face. Shukra was the wisest of the wise men. He was known by the name Kavi. There were some who said that he was wiser than even Brahaspati, the preceptor of Indra. Shukra loved the Daityas and Bali was his favored disciple. He did not want Bali to be deceived. He looked kindly at the king and said, "My son, you do not know what you are doing. This sweet young Brahmin boy, who according to you is still a child, who does not know what is good for him, is not what you think he is. He is the Lord Narayana himself. He is set on helping the Devas and so he is born as the son of Kashyapa and Aditi. You are, at heart, a very simple person and you have been very rash in promising to grant a boon to this youngster. It is not going to be a simple boon. I know that it will only spell destruction to you and to the entire Asura clan. An injustice is being contemplated. I do not think you should be the victim to it. This Narayana, who is standing before you, is going to deprive you of all your wealth. You will lose all that you have. Your power will be snatched from you, and as for your glory, it will all be swallowed by the Devas, thanks to their Lord, their champion, Narayana. Indeed, my son, you are a fool. After giving away all that you possess, where will you live? You will have no place even to stand. This child has asked for 3 paces of ground, paces measured by his small lotus feet. Are you not aware that with 1 foot the Lord will measure the entire earth? The second pace will cover the world of the gods. Where will the foot be placed a third time? Can you not see that he will place it on your head and push you down to the nether world? It stands to reason that you are not in a position to grant the boon to him. I know the problem that is worrying you. You have promised him something and it is not dharma to take back your promise. I grant that. The subject has been well discussed in the Rig Veda. I will explain it to you. To say I will give is speaking the truth. After saying that if a man says I will not, then an untruth is spoken. Truth is considered to be the flower and fruit born of the tree named speech. One who speaks the truth will be famed for his goodness. He is, after all, the tree which grants such beautiful flowers and fruits by name truth. Untruth, on the other hand, strikes at the root of the words. A tree which has been uprooted, whose roots are visible to the naked eye, will dry up in no time and it will fall to the ground. Even so, a man who speaks an untruth will make his Atman rootless, infirm, and his body will fall to the ground. And so, man should never speak an untruth. But an untruth is allowed under certain circumstances. When there is a danger indicated to his body as a consequence of a gift he has promised, a man can retreat his promise and refuse to grant it. Under special circumstances, like when a man has to coax a woman to listen to him, when he is joking, when a marriage is to be performed, praising the qualities of the young man or women and exaggerating them, when one's life is in danger, when the intention is to do good to the cows or to the Brahmins or to save the life of someone in danger. Under these circumstances, the Rig Veda allows a man to speak an untruth. When this boon you have granted is sure to destroy you, you are perfectly justified in taking back your word. No sin will be ascribed to you. I am telling you that the only course open to you is to refuse the boon. Bali listened to his guru with great attention. He was silent for a long moment. He then said, I am quite convinced by your argument that a man need not have any qualms about refusing to grant a boon which will endanger his security. But, my lord, look at me. I am not like the ordinary human beings to whom worldly security is important. I am the son of Virochana and my grandfather was Prahlada. Being a scion of that noble race, how can I do what you ask me to do? Can I even consider it for a moment? Is it not shameful? If I listen to you, I will have to behave like an ordinary man who is unwilling to part with his wealth. Again and again it has been proclaimed that there is nothing more heinous than untruth. I can be burdened with any terrible sin except this, speaking an untruth. Deceiving a Brahmin is the greatest calamity that can visit me. I am not so afraid of hell or poverty or sorrow or loss of position or even death. I am afraid of only infamy. Wealth and position stay with a man only as long as he lives. Once he is dead, they become meaningless. Why then should they be important when he is alive? Again, you say that my life is in danger and so a lie is justified. To me, it does not seem to be such an important issue at all. I prefer to please a Brahmin. Consider great souls like Dadichi and Shibi. They did not think of themselves when they gave. Think of my father whose name is still remembered because he was a giver and not because he was a king. This kingdom of mine has been ruled by great asuras who have never known what defeat is. They are all gone, every one of them, but their fame is still perfuming the earth. It is easy enough to find heroes who have died fighting, but it is rare to find a person who has had the good fortune to give wealth to a deserving person. It will be commendable if I can give away my wealth. Poverty, which follows such a gift, will indeed be desirable. Even if the man is just an ordinary poor man, it is good when the recipient is a great Brahmin of your class to give. Then poverty itself will be an ornament to me and to my name. I have decided to grant the boon to this young Brahmin boy. If, as you say, he is Lord Narayana himself, who is asking me to grant him a boon, I am all the more excited at the thought of giving it to him. His hand will be underneath mine. Can anything be a greater good fortune than that? Granted that his request is unfair, that is not in any way going to affect or alter my decision. I will grant him the 3 paces of ground he has asked for. Shukra was highly incensed at the insult offered by Bali. He was the Guru and Bali had not obeyed him. In a fit of anger, Shukra cursed Bali. He said, "You seem to think that you are wiser than me. You are really an ignorant man. You are lacking in respect to the elders since you choose to ignore my words. You will soon find yourself without a kingdom. I curse you that your glory and your success and wealth will soon leave you and you will fall from grace." The curse of the Brahmin did not affect Bali. He called for his wife Vindhyavali. She brought the golden vessel in her hand, the vessel which had held purified water. Bali and his wife sat at the feet of Vamana and washed his dear feet and took the water on their heads. The heavens rained flowers on Bali and his wife Vindhyavali. The sky was filled with the music from heavenly instruments. The Gandharvas began to dance and the Kinnaras were singing. The flowers were falling on Bali incessantly. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Chapter 99 of Shrimadbhagavatam, 3 paces of ground. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The gift had been given and received. Bali lifted his eyes and looked at Vamana. Even as he was looking, the small Brahmin boy grew to immense proportions. Bali looked with tears of joy at the Vishwarupa of Narayana. He was granted the privilege of seeing the form of the Virat Purusha. He saw the universe which is formed of the Mahabhutas, the 3 gunas, the Indriyas, the Chitta and the Jiva. He saw the Rashasthala at the feet of the Lord and the earth in the soles of the feet. The knees were the mountains and the birds, while the thighs were seen to be the homes of the winds. He saw the Prajapatis and the Asuras. The Lord's navel was the sky and inside him were the 7 seas. On his chest were the stars clustered and forming a garland of beauty. In the heart of the Virat Purusha, Bali found Dharma, and is in his chest Rita, sweet words spoken with righteousness. Satya was also there. In the mind was found Chandra. Lakshmi with the lotus in her hand was in his broad chest. His throat contained all the Samavedas and all the sacred incantations as well as sound in all its forms. The shoulders revealed the Devas led by Indra. His ears were the quarters, his head the heavens. The sun was in his eyes and his mouth held fire. His throat had the Vedas and his tongue Varuna. His eyelashes were the fates and the derision in the lift of the eyebrows. Bali saw on his forehead night and day and anger, while the Lord's lower lip was an epitome of greed. His touch was lust, his gait was yajna, and his shadow was death. His smile was Maya, the hair on his body was the trees, creepers, and shrubs on the earth, while the rivers were his veins. His intellect was Brahma, his body was the home of all movable and immovable things, the Devaganas, the Rishis, and in short, everything. The Asuras, who were the attendants of Bali, found to their consternation that the prophecy of Shukra had come true. They could not bear the brilliance of the Lord's form. They fell down in a faint. When they woke from the faint, they saw the form of Narayana and not the Virat Purusha. The attendants of the Lord had all come from Vaikunta. The weapons of the Lord were all there. The glorious Sudarshana, the bow by name Sharanga, the conch which was famed by the name Panchajanya, and the Gada Kaumodika. The attendants were led by Sunanda, the favorite of the Lord. The Lord was glowing with his crown with jewels gleaming from it. His bracelets adorned his magnificent arms, and his earrings shaped like fish gleamed with every movement of his head. Srivatsa, the mark of his chest, was made more beautiful by the jewel Kaustuba he wore on his chest. His golden yellow silk was flying in the breeze, and a beautiful smile lighted his face. The immense form of the Lord reached the heavens. Narayana with one foot covered the entire earth which belonged to Bali. His frame filled the skies, and his arms spread wide enveloped the quarters. For the second pace only a part of the heavens was visible. He raised his foot and it reached the Maharloka, and passing it, it went to Janaloka, Satyaloka, and Churloka. Brahma, who was in Satyaloka, went with great excitement near the foot of the Lord. The gleam from the nails was like the soft light of the moon, and it beautified the Satyaloka. With him came the rishis Marichi, the Sanaka brothers, the yogis, the Vedas, and their branches, and they all worshipped the foot of the Lord. Brahma performed puja to the foot of the Lord with the water from his Kamandalu, and the water which fell from it to the foot of the Lord flowed as a river by name Mandakini, purifying all the spots she touched. On the earth, when she was brought there later, she became known as Ganga. The Lord had measured the entire earth and the heavens too. He resumed the form of the Vamana and stood there smiling. The Asuras saw their master robbed of all his wealth and his kingdom. They decided to fight with Vamana. They thought that they could fight with Vamana, destroy him, and re-establish Bali on the throne. They rushed towards the divinity form of Narayana with their weapons uplifted. The attendants of Vishnu who were there already prepared themselves to fight with the Asuras. Bali saw all this and he became angry with his attendants. He said, "Listen to my words and abandon this resolve to fight. Evidently, the time is not favorable to us. Indeed, time is the most powerful of all factors. Time is the Lord himself, and according to him and his wish, man is granted happiness and sorrow. Man is helpless in his presence. There was a time when this same time favored us, and it spelled ill for the Devas. We were powerful and they were suffering. Time has now decided to reverse his tactics. Nothing, not a large army, nor incantations, nor tapas can stem the tide of time. We can only wait for the moment when there is a change in our fortunes. Till then, be wise and control yourselves. Do not fight, it is futile. Garuda was standing by the side of the Lord. He stole one glance at his master and then, with Varuna Pasha, he tied up Bali. There were shouts of horror and indignation from all quarters when this happened. Bali smiled to himself. He knew why this has happened. Narayana wanted him to be rid of the two dread sins which had found a place in his heart, the twins, I and mine. When he had said, I can give the entire earth to you, it is mine, the Lord must have smiled to himself and decided to punish him for that. He looked at Vamana. When he saw the love and grace there, Bali knew that he was wrong. The Lord had come to bless him. By asking the boon, he had taken away all that he had, and the sin, mine, had been washed away. The Lord now wanted to let the world know that only by surrender can one lose I, and that was why he had asked Garuda to bind him. The kindness of the Lord made Bali's eyes fill with tears, and he bowed his head with humility while he was being tied up with the Varuna Pasha by Garuda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Chapter 100. Bali keeps his promise. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The Lord looked at Bali, who was now a captive, who had lost all he had because he would not swerve from truth. And Narayana said, You are the king of the Asuras, and you promised me ground which will be covered by 3 paces measured by my foot. 2 of them, as you have seen, have been covered and they are mine. There is still 1 pace left. Where will I place my foot? Tell me. You have not kept your word and you know what the punishment is for one who speaks an untruth. You will have to be pushed into the nether world. Your guru has already told you about it. Bali was neither frightened nor hurt by the words of Vamana. He smiled and said, Lord, I do not consider my words to be lies. There is still place for your 3rd pace. Please be gracious enough to place your foot on my head. I am not afraid of Naraka, but I am afraid of being called a sinner. I am not afraid of these bonds which have tied me up. I am not afraid of poverty and eternal sorrow. Punishment which is meted out to a man by one who is dear to him, dear like a mother, a brother, a father or well-wisher, is indeed a blessing. In the eyes of the world, you are supposed to have punished me for my pride and my arrogance. But in reality, you have blessed me. You have opened my inner eye, the eye of wisdom, and you are a friend of the Asuras and not their enemy. You love my grandfather Prahalada. You were silent when he was tortured by his father because Prahalada knew that the physical frame, which was going through so much pain, is in reality nothing. He knew that the body was of no help, that wealth and friends were of no assistance when there was danger of one's wisdom being eclipsed. He did not think of any of them even for a moment, but spent all his time thinking on you and your blessed feet. I have also done that. It is wealth that makes man proud and arrogant. Man becomes blind and loses sight of the fact that death is the end of the body. And now, what have you done to me, my Lord? You have forced this wealth away from me, and you have made it possible for me to reach you sooner than would have been the case otherwise. I am the most fortunate among men. At that moment, Prahalada, the grandfather of Bali, came. He was the beloved Bhakta of Narayana, and Bali wanted to fall at his feet and honor him, but he could not, since he was bound by the Varuna Pasha. He welcomed him and worshipped him with his tears. Prahalada went straight to Vamana and fell at his feet. With his tears he washed the feet of the Lord. Brahma came to Narayana and said, "Do not distress Vindhyavali any longer. Please release Bali from his bonds. He has given you all that he had. Have you not said that a man who has had his thoughts always with you will attain your nearness, even if he worships you with water and a few blades of grass? This Bali has given away everything to you, and he has surrendered himself to you. He should be rewarded by you." Narayana said, "When I want to destroy a man, I grant him all the wealth and power in the world. He then gets involved in them and forgets his real nature. If, however, I desire to save a man from this Maya, I take away his wealth, his all. Rid of all his faults, he will become mine. Once he is saved, my Bhakta will never be destroyed. As for Bali, never once has he swerved from the path of truth. He has conquered Maya. He has suffered so much. He has lost his wealth, his power, and his position as the Lord of men. His enemies are laughing at him, tied up as he is by this Varuna Pasha. His kinsmen have now abandoned him. His Guru has cursed him, and yet his firmness to stay in the path of Dharma is commendable. I spoke such deceptive words, and his Guru spoke so many truths from the Vedas to convince him that he could call untruth truth. But he would not listen. Bali has now attained a state which is to be envied by the Devas. Blessed by me, he will be the Indra during the Manvantara, by name Savarni. He will stay till the time in Suthala, which is dear to me. Bali, king of men, you will now go to Suthala. I will be there with you to protect you. I will always be with you. All your Asuric nature will vanish very soon, and you will be a great Indra during Savarni Manvantara." Bali was so overcome that he could not talk. His eyes were raining tears, and his words were buried in his throat, which was too full of tears to function properly. After a while, he composed himself and said, "My Lord, you came to me and asked for a gift. I was so absorbed, so intent in granting it to you that my mind did not think of saluting you properly. I made only an attempt at prostrating before you. Even that small effort has granted me your infinite grace. You have placed your blessed foot on the head of this contemptible Bali, who was blinded by his power and wealth. How can I praise your kindness towards me?" Bali was released from the Varuna Pasha. He walked round the Lord, Rudra and Brahma. He then entered the Sutala Loka. Prahlada spoke to the Lord. He said, "The denizens of the heavens prostrate at your feet for your blessings. As for my grandson and me, we are not Devas, we are mere Asuras. By birth we are inferior to the Devas, and yet your love for us is great. So great that I consider that our fortune is far greater than theirs. How can I thank you, Lord, for the kindness you have showered on this child of mine? You had made him Indra. When there was danger of his forgetting himself because of the splendor of it, you have come yourself, taken his glory away from him and blessed him. And you have promised to be the guardian of Bali in Sutala Loka. I do not know what we have done to deserve this favor from you." Vamana smiled kindly at him and said, "Prahlada, please enter the Sutala Loka and stay with your grandson. I will always be there in your presence. Mace in hand, I will guard the portals of your house." Prahlada then entered the Sutala Loka after saluting all the gods. At the command of the Lord, Shukra completed the yajna which had been begun by Bali. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.